Welcome to the Private School Leader Podcast, where private school leaders learn how to thrive and not just survive as they serve and lead their schools. I strongly believe that it is possible to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader. And my passion is to help you figure out exactly how to do just that, right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And I'm your host, Mark Minkus. So one of the most famous opening lines in classic literature is, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times." So I'm going to pause for a moment and see if you can remember the book and the author, where the first line is, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times." And so many of you know that that's The Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. And so, you might be scratching your head and ask yourself the question, why is Mark quoting Dickens on a podcast episode? Well, here's why. If you're listening in real time, it's mid-May, and it's a few weeks away from the last day of school, the last teacher work day. And if you're anything like me, maybe you don't have an actual countdown, but you know how many days, or at least you're looking forward to that first day after the teachers leave. And let's face it, a lot of people have big misconceptions about what summer looks like for a private school leader. And so, there's a lot that we have to do, and, we're not quote unquote off for the summer. And I know that we have a lot of good intentions during the year of things that we're going to do. And let's face it, good intentions usually get derailed by the tyranny of the urgent. And that's kind of a description of our lives during the school year. And so summer is the best of times and the worst of times for getting caught up and for proactively doing a few things that we should do. The reason it's the best of times is because you have less interruptions and a little more time to think and more time to proactively get things done to get ready for the school year, maybe even to grow yourself a little bit. But it's the worst of times because you're exhausted, you need to rest, you need to get ready for the next school year, and probably the last thing you want to hear about is anything that you quote-unquote should do. Well, I'm a big believer that you're a grown-up, you're an adult, and you can decide for yourself whether or not you're able to do one of the things that we're going to discuss in today's episode. Because on today's episode of the Private School Leader Podcast, I'm going to try to persuade you to do one of these 4 things this summer to have a better 25-26 school year. So as a leader, private school parents can cause us a lot of stress and anxiety. And I created a brand new resource. I just created it last week, and it's called The 4 Worst Things Parents Believe About Your School and How to Change Their Minds. And almost 100 school leaders downloaded that free resource in the past week, and I want you to get your hands on it. Again, it's called The 4 Worst Things Parents Believe About Your School and How to Change Their Minds. And you can grab that free guide at theprivateschoolleader.com/believe. But basically, I just want to ask you, have you ever gotten really frustrated when parents believe things about your school that aren't true? I know I just get infuriated and super discouraged when that happens because, unfortunately, parent perception is also reality. So I've created a PDF guide for you that will talk you through 4 super problematic things that parents probably believe about your school, but most importantly, I'm going to teach you how to change their minds. So you can grab the 4 worst things parents believe about your school and how to change their minds over at theprivateschoolleader.com/believe. And then I also wanted you to know that over the past few weeks, a bunch of school leaders have purchased Parent Academy to use as part of their teacher in-service when the teachers come back at the end of the summer. And Parent Academy, as you probably know, contains 2 45-minute webinars that are plug-and-play PDs. There's a 27-page printable notebook that you can 3-hole punch and put in a dollar store binder, and it's got guided notes and discussion questions. And that's at theprivateschoolleader.com/parent academy, where you can learn more. And also there's some quotes there from school leaders and from teachers who've participated in those PDs. And Parent Academy is a step-by-step framework that will help you go from feeling stressed and anxious to feeling confident and calm. And over the last 33 years, I've built successful relationships with thousands of parents. And so I've taken everything that I know about private school parents and working with them, put it into an online course. The first 4 modules are for you as the school leader. And then I teach your teachers that content in these 2 plug and plays. And so I want you to think about what that could look like, 2 45-minute PDs or even one of them during your teacher in service when the teachers come back at the end of the summer. So privateschoolleader.com/parent academy to check that out. All right, so we are talking about how you could do one of these 4 things this summer to have a better 25-26 school year. And so I want to give a disclaimer. You know, this podcast is a shame-free, guilt-free, judgment-free space. And the last thing I want for you is when you listen to an episode that you go away feeling bad about yourself. You know, I've been to conferences before. You've been to conferences, whether it's NAIS or some other national or state conference. And sometimes I get energized and fulfilled and excited at those conferences, but sometimes I just leave feeling, all of these things I should do, or these other schools are doing this and we're not doing that, and their enrollment is this, and so on and so forth. And comparison is the thief of joy. And so, that's what happens. But here's the thing. I don't want you to hear these 4 things that I'm recommending that you do one of them during the summer to have a better school year next year, and hear those things and then feel bad. I just hopefully can inspire you and break it down into chunks that you can see that it is possible for you to do at least one of these things. And, if it works and you're feeling like an overachiever, then you do more than one. But I just don't want you to feel shame or guilt or frustration or overwhelm. I just want to help you grow. And that's what this podcast is all about. So that's my disclaimer. Let's get into the list. And number 1 is read a book. So back in June of 2023, I actually did 2 episodes where I listed, quote unquote, your summer reading list. And I did 2 episodes. One was leadership books and one was productivity books. And then in June of 2024, I did an episode where it says, if you only read one book this summer, read this one. And today I'm going to suggest just 2 books. And one of them is actually that book from June of 2024, where I said, if you only read one book this summer, read this one. So I'm running it back in case you didn't get a chance to read it. So what are the 2 books? So if I'm suggesting that during this summer, that if you read a book, that it will make the 25-26 school year better, then they're probably pretty good books. And if, God forbid, I had a fire at my house, I've got a lot of leadership books. If I can only grab one leadership book, it would be The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And I will link it in the show notes at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 135. And in fact, last summer, in mid-June, I did 3 consecutive episodes 86, 87, and 88, where I took 7 of the laws in each episode and we kind of broke it down and talked about it in more detail. So if you were to read this book this summer, you could actually have a companion episode where you read the first few laws and you listen to the first episode. The thing about this book, there's many things that I love about it. It's practical. It's easy to pick up and put down because with 21 laws, you can just read a law and maybe it takes you 10 minutes and then you can put it down. It's not something where you have to sit. It's not super complex. You know, in the summer, our brains aren't fully functioning like they do during the school year. And so it is an easy read. But again, this for me would be the number one leadership book, most influential leadership book in my career. And the book outlines 20 laws or core laws that John Maxwell says are essential for you to be an effective leader. And then he illustrates the stories. He illustrates each law with stories and examples and gives his own insight. And I just want to mention 3. So one of them is the law of the lid. I think that's actually number 1. And way back in episode 1 of this podcast, I talked about the law of the lid and how you can lift your lid. But anyways, the law of the lid is leadership ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. And it talks about kind of figuring out where is your lid, and that your school can't rise above the level of the leader, their leadership level, and things like that. So law of the lid. Another one is the law of influence, which says true leadership cannot be mandated. It's earned through influence. So leadership followers, it's all voluntary. We want volunteers, not hostages. And so the law of influence, we want to influence people. The social media influencers get a bad rap because some people say, well, they just have a lot of followers and they don't do anything, and then they make a lot of money because people buy the stuff that they talk about. Well, yeah, that's what influence is, okay? And so the law of influence teaches us how to do that with integrity as school leaders. And then one more, the law of navigation. Leaders chart the course before they set sail. And so it's our responsibility as leaders for our school or for our division to be the one that sees things farther out, sees things sooner and more clearly. And I realize that's hard to do when you're dealing with urgent matters that are the latest and loudest is always the thing that gets our attention. And so anyways, the first book that I'm suggesting read a book, is 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And then many of you know where I'm going with this second book, and that is Hopes and Fears by Robert Evans and Michael Thompson. And I believe that this book is so important that I really, 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 truly feel that every private school leader should have a copy of this book on their desk, and that they should reread it every year. It's like 150 pages. It's an easy read, but it's that important. It's that good. And here's the thing. It's not just about the content, but it's about the authors, because both of them are psychologists. Both of them are former heads of school. Both of them have done consulting and coaching at schools for over 30 years. This adds up to thousands of different schools. Both of them were themselves K-12 independent school students, and then all of their children from both authors went through independent schools K through 12. So they've seen it from all different angles. And then with the psychology degrees that they have in the background, they also are able to talk about it from the standpoint of why parents act the way that they do, but then also give very practical steps that you can take that are actionable. So number one thing, we're listing 4 things. Do one of these 4 things this summer to have a better school year next year. And one of them, number 1, is to read a book. Okay. Number 2 is revive an activity. Revive an activity. So I'm going to ask you to do something that I don't ever think I've asked you to do before on the podcast. I'm actually going to ask you a question, and then I want you to pause the podcast and think of the answer. So I know that I always encourage you to multitask while you're listening to the podcast. So this might be a little tricky if you're working out or if you're driving, but I would really encourage you. I'm going to give 2 statements where you're going to fill in the blank. And after I give you those 2 statements, I really encourage you to pause the podcast and then think of the answer and then press play. So here's the first one. It has been so long since I blank. It has been so long since I blank. And I really wish that I had more time to blank. So where I'm going with this is things that you enjoy doing, things that you love doing, things that are part of your identity, things that you used to do, things that bring you joy, but typically you haven't done them in a long time. And so I'll hit you with those 2 one more time, and then please pause the episode and think about the answer. It's been so long since I blank, and I really wish that I had more time to blank. So go ahead and press pause. Okay, so you're back, and hopefully you did take the time to think about the answer. And why did I ask you that question? And why is this called revive an activity? And why is that so important? Well, that activity is part of your identity. And I really believe that too many private school leaders are sacrificing their identity on the altar of their schools. And just in the past year, I've had 3 different clients that have said something along these lines. I don't even really remember what I like to do for fun. And I had a client tell me, I don't really remember what any of my hobbies are. Because one of the activities we do in coaching, and it's also in Thrive Academy, is an identity chart. And sometimes they get as far as leader, mother, wife, and then they're just stuck. Or leader, father, husband, and then they're just stuck. There are other things that make up our identity, things that we used to do, things that we enjoy doing, but school has invaded every part of our lives, and the first thing to go are the things that bring us joy that take time. And so when we're talking about doing something this summer that could change your school year next year, I want you to strongly consider reviving an activity. And one last thing on this, and then I'll give you a couple quick examples from coaching clients. I really believe that if you revive an activity in your life, the one that you filled in the blank, that it will have a disproportionate positive impact on your life. And what I mean by that is water is proportional. So if you throw a small rock in a pond, you get a small splash. If you throw a big rock in a pond, you get a big splash. But with reviving an activity, I think you throw a small rock into the pond and get a big splash in your life. Hopefully that makes sense. That's how big of a deal this is going to be. But like with anything else in life, you have to take tangible steps to turn that good intention into reality. Let me give you a couple of quick examples. I have a Thrive Academy student in Illinois, and she said, when I asked that question, she said, when I touch paint to canvas, all the stress leaves my body. And because she's an artist, that's part of her identity. And I said, well, how long has it been since you have done that? That's amazing. And she stopped and thought, and she said, 18 years. And I said, well, how long have you been a principal? And she said, 18 years. And so to make it tangible, over the course of a few weeks, it was like, okay, just start by thinking about where could you do this? And she's like, okay, well, my son went off to college. I could set up an easel in his bedroom. And then the next week was like, well, do you have a canvas? Yeah, I could find a canvas in the attic or the basement. So she found a canvas. And then it's like, well, when? Okay, well, I could probably paint for 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon, maybe like twice a month. And then she put it into her calendar. And then the next week, 4 weeks in now, it's like, okay, well, do you have any paints or brushes? Well, yeah, but they're all crusty and whatever. And so she ordered some paints and some brushes from Amazon. And it took a while. It took 4 or 5 weeks, but there was a magical Sunday afternoon when she painted for 2 hours, and it had a disproportionate impact positively on her. I have a client in Texas, a coaching client in Texas. She has 3 young kids. She has a husband that has a crazy shift work schedule. And her answer was that she loves photography, but hasn't done it in years. And it's like, okay, well, let's get actionable. Let's get proactive. Let's put it into the calendar. And so she got her mom to watch her kids and for a couple of hours, and she went to a new yoga studio that a friend was opening and needed photos for her website. And she went there and took photos for a couple of hours. And then a couple weeks later, she actually went to a park for a couple hours and just took pictures of birds and trees and flowers and insects and loved it, was so happy and felt so different after doing it. But it took some proactivity and some planning. And then my last example, I have a coaching client in Dubai, and I remember one day I was talking to her and I asked her that question, and she said, I love to read novels. And it just so happened that it was the afternoon before she and her family were going on a 1-week vacation. And I said, that's awesome. I said, how many novels do you have in your suitcase? And she's like, 0. And I'm like, well, I can guarantee you you're not going to read a novel on your vacation if you don't have one in your suitcase. And that afternoon, she happened to actually be at her dad's house, and she grabbed a couple of novels from her dad's bookshelf, and then she read 2 or 3 books on that week-long vacation. The point is that step 1 is thinking of the activity that you want to revive and that would bring you joy and fill you up and that you haven't done for a long time and that you really wish you had more time to do it. And then step 2 is to take a couple of tangible steps. You have to buy something, usually low cost. You have to join that pickleball league. You have to get the babysitter set up. And I realize that, I say this and it's like, well, that, you make it sound like it's easy. No, it's not easy. But if you do it and you revive the activity during the summer, the way that it's going to change your 25-26 school year is now is the time to revive this activity. And then when the school year rolls around, you might do it less often because your life gets so busy, but you will actually still do it. And by then you'll have remembered, you'll have scraped off all the rust, gotten all the cobwebs off, all of that, and you will be experiencing that thing that you used to do. And it will stick around during the school year. Maybe not as much, maybe not as often, but reviving that activity during the summer is something that will significantly change your school year. Okay, the number 3 on our list of 4 things, and remember, I'm only suggesting that you pick one and you do it this summer to have a better school year. Number 3 is to create some friction. Create some friction. So 80%, I'm talking about cell phones here for a minute, so just give you a heads up. 80% of Americans in a recent survey wish that they spent less time on their phones. 80%. 53% of Americans say they want to significantly reduce the amount of time that they spend on their phone. Now, I'm not into smartphone and internet bashing here. I think my smartphone and our smartphones are awesome. We have this piece of technology that we can carry around in our pocket or handbag that is unbelievably connected to pretty much anything. If I'm watching a movie, Netflix movie with my wife, and I see this one actress and I'm like, oh, how do I know her? Boom, IMDb, I get my answer. I want to know a sports score. I want to check Instagram and keep up with family members or what my clients are up to at their schools. There are so many awesome things about our phones, but 2 big problems with our smartphones. Number 1, the smartphone is usually the portal for how school gets into your house. I'll say that again. Number 1, your smartphone is usually the portal for how school gets into your house. And then number 2, it takes away from us being present and living our lives in the present. It takes away from us living our lives and being present and being in the present. I'll give you an example. So not this past NBA season that's just concluding, but the previous season, LeBron James set the record for all-time scoring points in NBA history. And you may have seen these 2 photos side by side. It kind of was a thing that was a photo that was trending in mid-April, so about a month ago. But anyways, LeBron taking that shot that's going to set the record. And in the background, what you see are thousands of people at the arena in Los Angeles. And every single person except one has their cell phone up and they're recording it. It's just a sea of cell phones. You can barely see people's faces. You just see the cell phones. And they're not in the moment. They're recording the moment. And most of them are going to post it online because they can show that they were there for that moment. And then that gives them some sort of social status or bragging rights or whatever. I'm not sure. But anyways, right next to that on this meme or this reel or whatever that I'm talking about is that you probably have heard that the Masters golf tournament does not allow phones. You have a phone, you get kicked out, and you don't ever get to apply for tickets again. Everyone leaves their phones in their car. And so Rory McIlroy won the Masters, and first time he'd won it, he was trying to win the career Grand Slam in the 4 majors in golf. He'd been trying to do that for 10 or 11 years. And so it was a big moment. And there he is. He's taken that last putt to win the Masters, and the green area around the green is just packed. But of course, what you see is everyone watching and cheering, and you don't see any phones out. And most of us that are school leaders, we remember the before and after. Now is the after. We remember life before cell phones and smartphones were everywhere. And so, again, I'm not bashing it. I'm just saying that sometimes it takes away from us being present. We're not phone shaming. I am proposing that most of us don't have the self-discipline to be able to reduce our phone usage, or to be able to reduce having it be the portal by which school gets into our house. And so we need to create friction. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. So my wife knows that I like Oreo cookies. And so the last couple of times that we've gotten an order that I've picked up at the grocery store, there was a party-sized thing of Oreo cookies in it. But I don't have self-discipline when it comes to Oreos. And so the first time that she bought them, the package of Oreos was there on the kitchen counter. And every single time I walked through the kitchen, I would grab 3 Oreos. And that's not good. That's really not good. And so then that package eventually disappeared, actually disappeared pretty quickly. But then I decided, you know what? Because the next time another package of Oreos showed up, I said, you know what? I don't have the self-discipline to only eat 3 Oreos a day. That was what I wanted to do. Instead of eating 3 Oreos every time I walked through the kitchen, I wanted to eat 3 Oreos per day. And so we had recently cleaned out our Tupperware cupboard. There was a lot of space in there. And so I put the Oreo package inside the Tupperware cupboard within easy reach just above the counter. And then I would pause before I would open it. Quite frankly, I kind of forgot about it. And there would be days that would go by, or maybe 2 days, where I wouldn't even eat my 3 Oreos. I created friction, just the friction of moving it from the counter to inside the Tupperware cupboard. Then that would cause me to pause and think. And then almost every day I would eat 3 Oreos or less. That was me creating friction. So what does that look like for you with your cell phone? Again, if we're going to try and do anything different with our smartphones, I think that summer is the time to dabble in this and try it out, and not during the school year. So my first big thing, and you've heard me say this a million times, I really believe strongly that you need to turn off notifications. Instagram notifications, Twitter, school email, turn off notifications, and maybe just have it be texts and phone calls. And I realize that sounds like a big leap for some of you, but maybe the place to start is with your school email notifications. Okay. The other thing, and this is the biggest thing, if you only do one of these, I'm giving a couple suggestions on how to create friction. I'm not saying do all of these. I'm saying maybe do one of these. Another big thing that was a huge game changer for me, it's probably been 2 years now, is that I charge my phone just out of reach of the bed. So it's nearby. I can hear it if someone in the middle of the night, one of my adult daughters calls or just whatever, but I'm charging it just out of reach because I realized I did not have the self-discipline to charge it on the nightstand, and it led to 2 things. One, doom scrolling before bedtime, which is bad for about 6 reasons, makes it harder to fall asleep, and then, I'm checking email while I'm laying there, and then this parent's living rent-free in my head, and I can't fall asleep. So there's a million good reasons. And then in the morning, I was checking school email, before I was saying good morning to my wife that I shared a bed with. So charging your phone just out of reach of your bed could be a huge game changer for you, and that creates friction. Another way to do that is when you light up your phone, how many swipes do you have to do to get to your school email icon? Most people, it's either on their home screen or it is one swipe. And I would strongly recommend that you move your email icon at least 2 swipes. And those swipes are going to be like the cupboard door that's between me and my Oreos. There's going to be a couple swipes between you and your school email. And that pause will be just enough of a half second for you to think, do I need to check this? Do I really need to look at this now? Or is it just me doing it because it's a habit or an addiction? And then lastly on this, and then we'll wrap it up with the fourth and final thing that I'm suggesting that we try to do this summer, is when you're with your family and you want to be present, I think it's almost impossible, if not impossible, to be present when your phone is within reach. So I'm not saying to charge it in a different room. I'm not saying to, put it in a drawer in your bedroom when you're in the living room with your family. I'm just saying to put it out of reach, and just physically it being out of reach so that you have to stretch or stand up to grab it is going to significantly cut down on how often you are just, we don't realize it. We're just scrolling. We're scrolling our lives away, and our family, our loved ones, our partner, our spouse, ourselves, we're right there, but we're not taking care of those people or ourselves because we've kind of gone down the rabbit hole. The algorithm will always win. The algorithm is going to keep sending me all the things that I'm interested in. And the more time that I spend looking at certain things that I find more interesting, it's going to send me more of those things. That's how the algorithm works. It's the attention economy. It's about you staying on that website, you staying on that social media platform for as long as possible. I get it. And I don't mind. I don't have a problem with me getting a steady stream of things that I'm interested in. But I'm just saying that I believe it's of the rare person who has the self-discipline to not let the algorithm win. And speaking of friction, that whole thing with moving the email icon 2 swipes, I've got at least 5 coaching clients who did that. And within 2 weeks, all of them reported that they were checking school email, about 80% less often outside of school hours, just with that additional friction. So we're making a list. We're talking about a list here where I call it, do one of these 4 things this summer to have a better 25-26 school year. Number 1, read a book. Number 2, revive an activity. Number 3, create some friction. And then number 4, and our final point, is to grow as a leader. And I can hear what you're saying. You're like, oof, summer, I just want to relax, and I got a lot of work to do. And when I'm not working, I want to try to relax and enjoy the nice weather and enjoy the little bit less crazy schedule. I get that. But also, the summer is the best time for you to grow as a leader, because it's really hard to grow as a leader during the school year when everything is going and coming at you and it's crazy. And here's the thing. I want to tell you about 2 things that I'm going to recommend briefly that you can do, and you don't have to go to a conference. You can do it from your home in your pajamas. You can do it on your back deck. You can do it next to the pool. You can do it anywhere. And how can you grow as a leader in your pajamas? Okay. Without leaving your house. Okay. Thrive Academy is an online digital course where you go at your own pace, where I teach you sustainable systems, little things that multiplied by time turn into big changes in your career as a school leader. And I show you how to go from survival mode to thriving, and then teach you how to be a better leader. And there's 7 modules that are broken into 39 lessons. It's over 9 hours of video content, but it's broken down into lessons that are usually about 15 minutes long. And there's an 86-page workbook that you could print out at school, put it in a little binder. It's got reflection questions, guided notes, tracking calendars, charts. And this is a go-at-your-own-pace way to grow yourself as a leader. Pick it up and put it down. Do it on your phone over the course of the summer, and you can check that out at theprivateschooleader.com/thrive. And then the other thing that you can do from the comfort of your own home in your pajamas is one-on-one coaching with me. And it's on Zoom. Each session is 60 minutes. I want to help you solve your biggest problem. Maybe it's the tyranny of the urgent and you can't get anything done. Maybe it's family time is non-existent during the school year because you have no boundaries. you're just thinking there has to be a better way than just putting my head down and running it back again this fall. So I want you to pause. I want you to just pump the brakes here for a second and ask yourself this question. When it comes to you as a leader, were you so happy with the way things went in this school year that's drawing to a close that you're ready to run it back the same exact way in the fall? And if you're not, then you need to grow and you need to change. And I'm just proposing that a couple of ways that you can do that, low-hanging fruit, is Thrive Academy at theprivateschoolyear.com/thrive, or one-on-one coaching at theprivateschoolyear.com/coaching. And if you get value from this podcast, you can get a lot more value from Thrive Academy or from working one-on-one. And last thing I'll say on that is I get it. It's like, okay, I don't believe it. I don't believe that's possible. We are in a trust recession in the world right now, especially in America, a trust recession. So don't take my word for it. Just read the testimonials and see how coaching and Thrive Academy have helped dozens of school leaders grow and have sustainable strategies that make them want to do it for a long time, to continue to be a private school leader for a long time. All right. So again, what's our list? Well, these remember, I want you to try and pick one of these 4 things and do it this summer so that you have a better 25-26 school year. Number 1 is read a book. We talked about the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell, Hopes and Fears by Evans and Thompson. They'll be linked in the show notes at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 135. Number 2 was revive an activity. I asked you to fill in the blank on it has been so long since I blank, or I really wish that I had more time to blank. And then revive that activity, but take tangible steps towards reviving that activity. And number 3 is to create some friction. The smartphone is the portal, how school gets into your house. And I think that it's too hard for us to overcome the algorithm and the awesomeness of our smartphones through self-discipline alone, and that we need to create friction through physical distance to keep us from being on our phones for an amount of time that we would rather not be on our phones, so we can be more present for our loved ones and for ourselves. And then number 4 is to grow as a leader. And the 2 suggestions that I'm making is a way that you can do this without leaving your house, at your own pace, at your own schedule, in your pajamas if you'd like. privateschoolleader.com/thrive is Thrive Academy, and one-on-one coaching, theprivateschoolleader.com/coaching. And I like to end every episode with a call to action. Just decide which one of these things you are going to do this summer, and then schedule it into your calendar. And then to wrap it up, I just want to, one more time, just ask you about the possibility of Parent Academy, the plug-and-play PDs as part of your August in-service. And I want you to imagine for just a second, what would it be like at your school if the teachers had much better relationships with the parents? So just imagine like less problems making it to your desk because teachers have built better relationships with the parents. Maybe more successful students who better benefit from stronger partnerships between teachers and parents, higher retention rates, higher parent satisfaction scores on the parent survey. How about happier and less stressed teachers and happier and less stressed parents and a happier and less stressed you? So I'm not saying that all of those things are guaranteed, but I am saying that people who use Parent Academy PD, that they are seeing their schools start to go in that direction. So these 2 45-minute plug-and-play PDs could be a game changer for you and your teachers, especially with planning for teacher in-service in August. You can check it out at theprivateschoolleader.com/Parent Academy. And then one last reminder about the free resource called The 4 Worst Things Parents Believe About Your School and How to Change Their Minds is available for you to grab free at theprivateschoolleader.com/believe. And if you get value from this episode, from any episode on the podcast, please share the link to the podcast with another leader in your life, another rising leader at your school. And I just appreciate you so much. I've been your host, Mark Minkus. I appreciate you and the hard work that you're doing all year long at your school. And just thank you so much for taking some of your precious time to join me here today. And I'll see you next time right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And until then, always remember to serve first, lead second, and make a difference.